What's up, Descendants? You can call me V, and today we're talking about Jayber. Now, Jayber is one of my favorite characters in the game, so I really wanted to show off my mobbing build and exactly how I use it to clear most of the content in the game. Now, let's get into the build. So, the build's pretty straightforward. We're using attack and compulsion, so we get a second attack turret, so we do more damage and cover more ground. We're using 2 HP mods, not so much for us to survive, but for our turrets to survive since they are stationary. We're also going with a non-crit damage build, so we're going to be using 2 amp mods, non-attribute, and dimension. We're also going to be using power increase and focus on dimension. You can use dimension specialist if cooldown isn't that big of a problem and you need a little bit extra damage. We're also going to be using skill expansion. This will almost max out our skill effective range, which is really needed. We're also going to be using nimble fingers and MP conversion for our cooldowns. We're also going to be using multi-talented for even more cooldown. Now this one, anytime you put down turret, which is a dimension skill, you're going to be getting that reduce cooldown buff. Now your very first turret isn't going to have the buff, but the second turret will, or any other skill. The way this looks is pretty much as followed. Put down a turret, doesn't have that cooldown buff, but the second one does. And you know, you can keep on putting down turrets. And if you use your third ability or fourth ability, they're singular skills. So when you activate them, it will give you another buff that increases your damage. That may mess up your cooldown rotation, so try not to do that unless you do want the extra damage, because the damage that you get from that will stay on the turrets that you place until they go away. Now that we got the build pretty much covered, let's go over the reactors. So pretty much the reactor is pretty straightforward. What you really want is well, non-attribute and dimension, but for the substats you're going to want ideal is dimension and then whatever enemy type you're going against, that would be the best outcome. And then on all reactors, I would say go with a hand cannon weapon group, just because you're going to want to pretty much use Peacemaker all the time. Peacemaker, anytime you do a dimension skill, which is your turrets, you will be getting a stack of Peacemaker, which increases your non-attribute skill power, and it stacks up to 5 times. So the more times you summon your turrets, the more damage your turrets are going to do. So it just makes sense to use Peacemaker while you're mobbing with your turrets. Now you don't always need to use Peacemaker. Most of the time I use Peacemaker when I'm going against a boss enemy or just a more difficult enemy for the extra damage. But most enemies will die pretty fast even if you don't use Peacemaker to get that extra buff. But I would highly recommend it on all reactors. For your components, I would say there's probably like 3 sets that you would want. One being the Slayer set, just mainly for that extra skill power. Another one would be Annihilation set if you want to have more of a focus on weapon play. Since Jayber technically is also a he's basically like a skill weapon hybrid, where he's going to be utilizing his skill damage but also his weapon damage at the same time. Another component set, well, not really a set, but components that you would want is to max out your HP, just so you have a lot more HP, because HP is really good, and if you're surviving, your turrets are surviving, everyone's doing damage. some of the weapons that you're going to want is, like I said, Peacemaker. Peacemaker will give you a pretty good buff and damage when you're using your turrets. I don't fire Peacemaker much. I don't use it as a main source of damage, but here's a build that I do have on it. I haven't updated the build in a pretty long time. This is like probably right when Deathstalker came out, so the build's pretty old. Like I said, I don't really use the gun as for damage very much. In fact, I have another build that is just mainly to max out my ammo, magazine, and fire rate, and then the weapon change. The fire rate and the ammo is for my third ability, the multi-purpose gun, to pretty much just increase the ammo count on that and increase the fire rate. The better weapon weight is to change out this weapon faster. Since I don't really use it, I mainly just want to kind of swap it out with another weapon so I can actually do more damage. But if you do want to build, this is what I currently have. I will probably update this at some point. Another notable weapon is the Python. Now the Python, when you hit weak points with the Python, you get stacks of prey. This will reduce the enemy's non-attribute resist, which is going to pretty much increase your damage of your turrets. Python, I would definitely use in some bosses. When it comes to mobbing, it's not really so much needed, but it is kind of nice just to have. Not only that, Python is really good when it comes to just destroying weak points. The build that I have on it is this one. Now I do switch out this mod slot with like other element types, depending on who I'm fighting and whatnot. Now when it comes to mobbing, weapons aren't really super needed. Most of the time we're just going to be summoning our turrets down. But when it comes to bosses, we are going to probably want to switch to a weapon and do some extra damage. One weapon that I really like is Smithereens. For my Smithereens, it's actually, I have a couple catalysts on it. Like there's these slots, I have multiple stuff that I can put on it to swap around elements, weak point mods, and just fire rate, and then just I have it set up this way to pretty much change the weapon as however I need it to be. Another thing before we hop into a dungeon, I will also say, so for Peacemaker, since I normally use this gun to summon my turrets all the time, I do have the sprint speed. The sprint speed is really nice. Now, if you don't have I can't talk. If you don't have sprint speed, it's not too big of a deal, as if you actually, here, I'll switch to this weapon. So I'm kind of slow, but if you actually pop your third while you have out your multi-purpose gun, you actually get a speed increase. So let's say you're using your Peacemaker or whatnot, and let's say you're not at the boss, so like the damage doesn't really matter, but you want speed, just pop your third, and then you're always gonna have that speed boost and whatnot, and then you can, you know, throw down some turrets. Another thing, if you I guess if you don't know about Jayber, his fourth ability will give you a buff called Overhaul, where anytime you put down a turret, it is enhanced right away. And the big part about this build is pretty much having your turrets enhanced all the time. So you're gonna want to use your fourth every once in a while to get the enhance. But that's pretty much covers the build. So first we're gonna get overhaul, so we're prepared, and jump into the action. Now the big thing with Jayber is just knowing positioning and enemy spawns. Gotta go to the next spot, get that out there, get that out there, get overhaul again. Sorry if my game's a little laggy or anything. I'm not even sure how well my my laptop can handle all this, but it seems to be doing alright so far. Just simply putting down turrets, nice and easy. Keep on moving. Oh no, that's fine. It wasn't fine. We're gonna skip some of these enemies since it's a little bit pointless to kill them. One problem with Jayber is some of the terrain isn't even, so sometimes placing turrets can be quite annoying. When there's like a crack and for some reason it just won't let you summon a turret. Now when it comes to bosses, you can split up your turrets, but sometimes you can just try to damage both bosses at once, or even just focus on one boss. Oh, that's not good. That was not good. I will say it's really late, so I'm pretty tired. Let's try that again. See, doesn't place down, but it's all good. Anyways, for the most part, that was pretty simple. I'm a little tired from work, but as you can see, it wasn't very difficult. I did have a couple hiccups here and there. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hopefully you got a good idea of what Jayber can do. There were some hiccups here and there, but I blame that on lack of sleep. As I said, I just got off from work, so I'm a little tired. Been a long day, but hopefully you guys enjoy the video, and I'll probably put out a bossing guide on Jayber and what I do with bossing, because that's actually pretty complicated. But I'll see you next time.